All right, hi everyone. This is Christina McPhillips, and I am excited to be here with you today. We are going to be going through a great webinar, Google Ad Grants and Google Search, minimizing efforts and maximizing your return. And let me check that my pal Tracy is on the line. Tracy, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, technology. Okay, great. All right, friends, let's go ahead. We will get started. So thanks everyone for joining today. We are here, as I said, for Google Ad Grants and Google Search Ads, minimizing your efforts and maximizing your return. Today we'll be discussing how to better your Google Grant program, but also why you should still be using Google Grants and paid ads together, and why if you're not using them together, you're likely leaving some money on the table. And then throughout this whole webinar, we want to encourage you to ask questions by chatting those to us in the question box, and we'll answer them as we go along. I know that there are a lot of different levels of understanding of the people that are on this webinar today, and so we want to be cognizant of everyone's areas of interest. So here are the things that we're going to be discussing so that when we get to your area of interest, your ears can perk up. First, we'll be talking about the basics of Google Grants and why some of you on the line may struggle to get yours up and running. And then we'll be talking about more intermediate topics like key performance indicators and how a successful program should be running and should look. And then we'll talk about the funnel, meaning how you can turn brand new people into donors, sort of a digital acquisition, if you will. And then we'll discuss advanced topics like bidding more than $2. I know some of you are probably interested in how you can really supercharge your program. And then finally, we'll go into combining Google Grants and paid ads so that you are just getting the absolute most success that you possibly can. And let me introduce you to my pal, Tracy Sodd. She is Parabloom's in-house Google Strategic Advisor. She runs our Google Grant and Search Ad programs for our public media clients. She has 8 years of Google Ad Grant and Search Ad experience, and she is constantly keeping up with Google and the changes that they implement. And she loves a challenge, which is why we love her. So, hi, Tracy.
Hi.
So with all that being said, let me go on why Google Ad Grants. Tracy, do you mind briefly running us through why stations should be doing this if they're not already?
Sure. Well, let's start with the real basics of it. Google Ad Grant is a grant that Google offers to nonprofits, specific nonprofits, all PBS and NPR stations, as long as they're not affiliated with the university, are eligible. That allow nonprofits to do advertising without having to actually pay any money. And it's a total of $10,000, up to $10,000. You get $10,000 every month if you set it up correctly, or $333 a day for advertising. Pretty much whatever aspect of your programs, your mission, that is best served. So it's free money, essentially. I mean, the easiest way to explain it is it's free money, free attention, free visitors. So it's something that there's literally no downside to having and using. And as Christina put together this lovely slide, it is every single day that you're not using this $333, those $333 are just lost. You can't get them back. So not only important to have and use, but as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So kind of on the other side of things, the Google paid search ads that are true money, not the monopoly money of the Google grant. Why would a station care about doing Google paid search ads? And everyone on the line, we're going to talk about how you can really combine these later on. But why do search ads matter, paid search ads?
So this is really confusing for a lot of people, and myself when I started with this 8 years ago as well. Isn't the Google ad grant the whole idea that you're getting free money to advertise? So why would you ever pay real money to advertise? So there are some significant limitations in the Google Ad grant. Google's smart, and they essentially allow you to do specific types of advertising and then take other types of advertising off the table. The most powerful of which being the ability to advertise images, videos, and to target specific audiences, specifically audiences that have been to your website before, so remarketing. Google paid search, paying money to do Google ads in addition to your Google grant is a great way to sort of fill in your funnel, your development funnel, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. Not only getting the attention of people in regards to your brand, but keeping it and continuing to develop those individuals with more brand affinity.
Okay. So with those kind of basics down, let's really dive into the actual basics that people will probably care about. So for those listening, if it applies to you, we're going to talk about applying for the Google grant, some tips and tricks, things that you should know about getting your program started. So Tracy, you and I have talked about how the application process is not necessarily complicated, but that there are a few things that everyone undoubtedly gets wrong. So as our expert, can you tell us specifically when it comes to the accounts to open, Google for Nonprofit, et cetera? Can you walk us through the process?
Yes, certainly. I do want to start by saying if you're on the line and you've had trouble setting up your Google grant for your Google for Nonprofit account and your Google grant, you are not alone. It's not that the process is necessarily complicated. It's that Google's not great at explaining step by step what it is that you need to do. And in many cases, they don't explain what you're supposed to do at all. So let me walk you through these steps, and you can feel better knowing that I've talked to dozens of people who have had the same issues engaging with Google's platform. So first of all, you need to open a Google for Nonprofits account before you can even begin to enter these waters. Then a Google Ads account. But it is super important that you do not enter credit card information. And this goes against everything that you would think you would want to do, because you open the Google Ads account, excuse me, and the first thing that you see is just notification after notification from Google saying, you must enter your credit card. You can't go to the next step. You have to create an ad. You have to do all this stuff. And it's because Google didn't bother to create an interface that was specific to the grant experience. It's just regular Google Ads, in which case these notifications that you're getting would actually be applicable. You do need a credit card, you do need blah, blah, blah. But you need to ignore all of those notifications. Click X, click close, click on the corners, just escape from what Google is trying to tell you to do. So that you have a Google ad account set up, but with no credit card information, no ads, and no other information. Then you need to go back to Google for Nonprofits and apply for the Google grant. And this is another point I see people really get tripped up on. You have to be very careful about the email address that you're using to apply for the grant. When you go into a Google site, if you have more than one Gmail address, which most people nowadays do, you have one for work, you have one personal, whatever, it'll auto log you in. You can tell in the top right hand corner who you are, who Google thinks you are, which email address. And if it has selected automatically the wrong one and you do the application, it won't take. So pay attention to the credit card. After you go through this process, there's a new Google Ads grant exam, which they have a bunch of requirements on how the Google grant needs to be structured. So you have to do the exam. And then finally, if you've gotten to a point where you do have the Google grant and you're having some trouble with keeping it, this is actually more into the intermediate phases. There are a list of requirements that you must fulfill in order to maintain the grant once you have it.
Okay. Okay. And then I know, Tracy, we talked beforehand, there are some universities that are on the line. And I want to say to everybody, please chat your questions. We'll answer them. So if you have questions that fall into this basics category, we would love to answer those for you. But will you answer the question, cut and dry for everyone? Can universities have a Google grant?
No. And that's really depressing that it's that clear, but no.
Okay. Okay. So for the folks on the line that are universities, I'm sorry to say that there is not a way to have one. So we may lose a few of you right now, but we love you anyway. All right, let's go on to the next, intermediate. So you'll be interested in this portion if you've got a program up and running and you're looking to increase your success. And let's talk about things like key performance indicators and the funnel. So, here we are, congrats, you have a Google grant, you want to increase your success, you need to learn about the funnel. But first with the KPIs, Tracy, what KPIs show that a station is running a healthy Google grant program?
I'm gonna point it, because we'll talk about these later. There are Google's requirements for maintaining the grant, but I don't consider those KPIs. Those are Google's KPIs. I'm thinking in terms of the things that a nonprofit cares about. And the most obvious one is, are you spending the full $10,000 a month? Are you getting every last penny that Google is going to offer you out of them and then using it? The second is, how are you using it? Are you getting the most people possible to visit your pages? Are they the pages that you want people to be visiting? Are you then using that information? Are you targeting people to pages that you can then remarket to them afterward and continue developing them? And we'll talk more about the funnel in a second. So basically, are you using the dollars in a way to get new people, get as many new people as possible, send them to the right place, and make sure they keep coming back?
There are a couple of quick questions that I want to pose to you, Tracy. So someone is saying, did they understand correctly that the station cannot be affiliated with a university to qualify for the grant money? That is correct.
It depends on how you mean by affiliated. So Google cares about the way that the nonprofit is legally registered. If the station it doesn't have a separate nonprofit status, and if you were to put in your nonprofit number, it would be the university's nonprofit number, then no, you are not eligible for the grant.
Okay. And yes, there was a second person asking why that is the case. And so you're saying that there's really one nonprofit number. I understand. Okay. And then someone else is saying that you also have to get your destination URLs approved before you use them. Does that apply to what you're talking about right now?
If you want, so in order to apply for a grant, you have to indicate what website you're applying for. So in that case, yes, but it's part of the process. If you want to advertise more than one URL, yes, you do have to get those additional URLs approved, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the funnel if you're ready to chat about that. So we collectively made this beautiful funnel internally. We hope you enjoy our illustration. So the funnel is an actual illustration of how you can develop these people that don't know very much about your station and take them through the journey of learning about you and caring about you enough to become donors eventually, or purchasers of a specific product or something like that, consumers of what you offer essentially. So Tracy, can you walk us through the steps in the funnel and then where to use the free Google grant appropriately, but then how to incorporate paid search ads and then combining the two eventually?
Of course. First of all, for those of you who are on the line who are marketing people, I'm sure that you've seen some version of this in 10 billion different places to do a bunch of different things. It is no less true for the Google Ads grant. The most effective use of online advertising, whether it comes from Google or any other source, is to use it consciously to target the people that you need to move from one of these tiers to the next, and get people going all the way through the funnel to the point of being a source of income for the organization. The first two stages, and for those of you who haven't seen this funnel, this concept of the funnel before, the idea is that it's progressive. You can sort of think about it in terms of how you interact with a new organization. So there's this great nonprofit in your hometown, but you don't know about them. There's no way that you're going to donate to them because you don't even know that they exist. So the Google Ads grant is a great way for taking care of those first, like, really simplistic problem steps that stand between a potential new donor and you. New people who don't know about your brand can see advertisements about all of what you offer. You can advertise anything, programs, internships, employment opportunities. Really, the list is pretty much endless. And it's especially helpful if you have a very recognizable brand, particularly with terms such as PBS or NPR, because you can put those in the advertisements, and then people not only get to know your organization, but they do so with this association with a brand that they already know well from a national level. There's also opportunities to get a hold of people who do know about the brand but might not know about a specific type of content. You have a great new program and you want to get more people to watch it. You have a landing page that allows people to ask questions to their people who are running for local political office. You can use the Google ad to get more attention for those things. Now, this is why I love using the free and the paid ads together, because this is sort of where Google ad grants stop. Because Google specifically removes the ability to remarket from the Google ad grant. So once these people have come to your site and seen your content and seen what you have to offer, you don't have any way within the Google ad grant to make sure that an advertisement that you post is being seen by that same person again. So for every person, there are a whole series of studies about this, where a person has to interact with your brand something like a minimum of 7 times before they'll even consider donating. So that's this idea. Someone comes to your site for the first time. Oh, this brand exists. Oh, wow, I actually like their stuff. Now you want to be able to reach that person again and say, hey, remember us? Remember that stuff that you liked, that you watched before, or that opportunity that you saw that you wanted to engage with? Come back. Come see more of what we have to offer. Watch another program, or you like this, maybe you might also like that. This is where we have the opportunity with paid search, paid Google ads, to reach people with videos, with display ads, to send people directly to passport programs. It's my understanding that a lot of you work directly with PBS stations, so I'm gonna hit the PBS stuff pretty hard, because it's actually a great application for the Google grant, because you guys have video content that's available to watch now. You can give people that instant gratification, and being able to do that with the paid ads is fabulous, because it's a great way to get people to come back and develop that affinity. In the bottom 2 aspects of the funnel, where you want to get people's email addresses and you want to obviously get people to donate, this is where the paid Google ads and the grant work really well together, because at this stage, people already know who you are. So you can use the grant to have text ads that pop up when people search for programs that they love, or your brand name, or things that people recognize that ask people to donate. So you basically match, hey, you know who we are already. We're running a donation campaign right now. Let me let you know about it the second that you're interested in engaging with our brand. And then paid ads can continue at this stage, and people can see that there is a fundraiser based on, there's a specific match, or there's a whatever, based on the fact that they've just been to your site before. So they can be on the Washington Post reading something, and they can have a little ad pop up on the right that says, hey, would you like to support your local station or support your local organization? So they don't even have to come to your site in order to get the critical information.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So please send us your questions that pertain to that We are going to go on, but we're going to keep the funnel in our minds consistently throughout the rest of this. So let's move on to some advanced stuff. The juicy stuff that you want to know about. The folks that care about these advanced topics really are running a successful Google Grant program. You're using the $10,000 a month, and you're wondering how you can take it to the next level. We've also decided to keep the image of the funnel in your minds in the upper right-hand corner. So Tracy, let's talk about kind of like the sexy stuff, the bidding more than $2 and tickets and events and things like that. How can we do more with the Google Grant?
Okay. So you're one of the incredible people who has gotten to the point of spending the entire $10,000. You've got the grant, you're spending the $10,000 a month. You followed all of Google's requirements. You're not having any notifications about disapproved ads or a disapproved account or anything. Now you're at the point where you really want to play with this and take it as far as it can go. Well, first of all, congratulations, that's amazing. When I first started working with the Google Grant, I was working at a nonprofit, and that someone handed me the Google Grant to manage 8 years ago. It took me a long time to figure out all those details. So, like, first of all, just virtual high five, really well done. So let's have some more fun with it then. There is some confusion about this $2 limit bid rule. It does exist, but you can get around it, and you can get around it within Google's own rules. Like it's not a sneaky way that you can get around it that Google will then take your grant away from you for. They've actually built it into their new rules that if you structure your account in a certain way, you can get around their $2 limit. But I want to talk about that in context with all of the other items that are on this page, because all of these advanced things tend to work together. First of all, I actually start from the bottom just to be confusing. It is possible to advertise multiple URLs. Google has a series of, call them petitions or certifications, where if you provide the right information, Google will allow you to advertise multiple URLs. Same with copyrighted items and terms, and same with advertising tickets or events. All of those three things on the bottom are all special certifications and special requests that you have to make of Google, essentially. But once you're in a position where you have access to these things, let's say, let's start with a specific example. So let's say that you have, there's a concert coming up, and someone's donated 10 tickets to the concert to your organization in exchange for you promoting the concert sort of in general. This is one of those unique cases where also you want to be able to bid more than $2 because so $2 is, it's a Google ad grant. It's imaginary money. So why do we care that the number's 2 as opposed to 10 or 20 cents or whatever? Because it's representative of the potential position in the search results that you can achieve. This is your ability to get above another ad or to not be able to get above another ad. So having flexibility in how much this number can go up is important when you have items that you may be competing with other organizations, especially paid for-profit organizations, for your item to appear. So if you have a ticket, and there are other organizations that also have these tickets, you want your ticket to appear first. So you make sure that you get the donation. That would require the ticket and event certification, but it also might require, I've seen this a couple times, the multiple URL certification, because a lot of organizations tend to host their tickets and other items on a URL that is different from their main URL. So let's say you have all of these things. In order to have your account be able to bid more than $2, you need to have conversion tracking set up and functioning. You can find, if you're interested in that, you can find on Google how to set up conversion tracking. It will be dependent on the type of system you're running and blah, 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 nerdy details. If you have that set up, you want to select a specific type of conversion-based bidding in your Google Grants account. If you have conversion tracking set up and you select conversion-based bidding, Google will, they actually remove the limit of the $2 entirely, and you can bid $5, $8, $10, $15, $20, $40 on a specific keyword.
Tracy, can I ask you a question? When it comes to you as like our Google strategic advisor and you're running a campaign for a station, what makes something important enough to you to bid $5, $8, $15? I know you like to, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, go to the station and say, what are your goals and objectives for the next 2 weeks? Do you then take that information and decide what you're going to bid?
Yes, though in most cases, there isn't a lot of competition for the subject matter. So for example, a program that a specific station is running that no one else is running, there's no need to bid more than $2 because you're not competing against anyone else for the attention. However, let's say one of your pledge items also happens to be something that Amazon sells. You're suddenly competing against Amazon for the attention for that item. And I mean, we all know that we would prefer to have someone purchase it from a nonprofit and have that money go to a nonprofit than to go to Amazon. So we want to make sure that we can outbid Amazon on the front page. I also just like being able to say that, like, the whole purpose of this is that we want to be able to outbid Amazon. Just sounds fun.
I like that too. Okay. All right, Tracy, outbid Amazon Sodd. That's a good name for you.
Yes.
Okay. So we have talked about some of the advanced topics. Anything else, Tracy, before I move on to the winning combination of using the grant and the paid ads?
Yeah, I didn't mention it, but because I find it sort of a peculiar use case for PBS stations. But again, I believe we have quite a few PBS stations here. In my weekly communications with various stations where we talk about what the goals are for the station and then how the Google grant or Google ads can best support those. I've come across an interesting one in the past few years where stations will have, they'll win grants, or they'll be eligible to receive money from certain organizations if they promote or get enough, like X amount of attention for a certain subject or a certain program. And a lot of times they'll create landing pages for these grants, for these programs, and they're supposed to, like, the idea is you get 1,000 views of this program in order to complete their side of the grant agreement. But without the existing SEO, without the audiences, the local audience's awareness this program exists, there's a lot of difficulty in getting a sufficient number of people to go to that page. This is a fantastic application for the Google Ad Grant because you don't have to have the page SEO'd. It doesn't have to exist prior. All you have to do is pick up existing search terms and direct people to this page. In some cases, they'll add it, like, on every single ad, they'll add a little like FYI on the bottom, hey, check out this great new program that we have. And it's helped them to be able to get those 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 visitors to that program and complete their side of the agreement for the grant.
Okay, thanks for that, Tracy. And with that, let me go on to, okay, we're gonna go on to paid ads and the Google grant. And I apologize for having a storm here. If you hear the lightning and thunder, it'll just make it more dramatic and exciting. So, all right, let's talk about kind of like the truth. We've talked about it before. It's firm, but it's fair. Google ad grants and Google search is really an opportunity and I want the stations listening to think, if you're paying for Google search ads, but you don't have a grant or you're not spending all $10,000, then you're essentially wasting money. And let's talk a little bit about that before we go on. Tracy, what are your thoughts?
I always hesitate to phrase things in this way. It's, as you said, it's firm but fair. To me, the most amazing thing about the Google grants and Google search paid ads together is the incredible opportunity for the organization, and the opportunity to really complete the organizational mission. I see this especially recently with dual licensee who have like news or NPR stations, where there's a lot of really crazy information that's floating around the internet right now, and being able to put the clear, honest, real, and useful information up at the very top of a Google search about like what's happening in the news today, and have the NPR station be the result for that is powerful. And it's really it's doing the audience a disservice to not have that quality result be at the top of their search results, especially for people who don't realize that it's an option, or they just tend to click on whatever's on the top. So better that it's NPR. So for me, it's a lost opportunity.
Okay, all right. Well, and one of the things that you've helped me to understand as we have been talking about this and developing the webinar is kind of this image that you have the Google Ad Grants and the paid search, and they cover different things, which we've discussed before, but I like this graphic that if you have the Google Ad Grant, that's great. Sorry, it's storming. If you have the Google Ad Grant, all you're really getting out of that is text ads, which are incredibly effective too. But when you add on the paid video ads or the paid retargeting, that's when you're really getting this powerhouse. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the Google Ad Grant is great for if the marketing funnel was a literal actual funnel. The Google Ad Grant is basically just pouring people into the top of it, just dumping attention and access into the very top of it, and that's fabulous and great, and would otherwise cost quite a bit of money to do. But those individuals and that like complete fullness at the top of the funnel, if the other steps in the process are not carried out, I always think of it like Ford's assembly line, where if you were like in the very first steps of the assembly line, you were just like, there were just the people who were putting on the tires, and that was it. Like nobody finished the process of actually turning it into a usable car. What an incredible, that's more than a lost opportunity, but I see this as being very similar. There's and the fact that this can be so heavily automated, it's not a high cost, it's not a high cost thing to do, and the number of people that you can reach, develop, demonstrate the value of what you have to offer, all in this just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 process. The other great thing about this is that you can add external things. Like let's say you want to do Facebook ads and on TV ads and all of these other pieces. Those bits just add to it, but they're not necessary. They're other opportunities, because the Google Ad Grant plus the paid Google ads, and then the Google Ad Grant and paid ads at the bottom of the funnel, it can be entirely self-sufficient and can do the entire, it can take people through the entire development process towards being a donor without any other piece being involved, which is incredible.
And Tracy, I know that one of the stations that Carl Bloom works with that you've been working on recently, they turned their program over to you and to us, and within a month you had they were maximizing the $10,000. But when I think about the fact that you were able to get 6,000 new qualified website visitors to them, I mean, that's the top of the funnel, and now they're going to be whittling those people down into new donors. So I really liked hearing the number 6,000.
And yeah, and per month, like that's 1 month, so it just continues on from there.
Yeah. So with that, I want to bring us to the Q&A portion. If anybody has any questions, absolutely feel free to ask anything. If you have a very specific question, a hurdle you can't get over, let us know. We'd like to answer for you right now. We do have a couple of questions that have just come in. So Tracy, when we were talking about the funnel, you mentioned running an email acquisition campaign. Can you tell me more? Because that sounds really exciting.
Yes. So I'm going to use a specific example just because it worked for a single station and I loved it. We were using the Google ad grant and actually the remarketing paid. We were getting people to come to the site, and then we were remarketing to them with passport shows. So getting people to come and just stream right there on whatever device that they were on. Then we continued doing that, but with a pop-up on the video the station's URL in order to get people to, and it was very simple. It was just, you know, don't want to miss out. Want to know what the newest stuff is that's coming onto Passport? Give us your email address, and we'll let you know what it is. And the turnover of email addresses from just that simple little pop-up, because of the system of people coming in, like new people seeing a search ad coming to the site, then seeing stuff about Passport, coming to Passport to watch stuff. The pop-up was literally just picking up the work that was already being done and turning it into email addresses. Apologies, everyone. I imagine that this is the incredible thunderstorm that's happening currently where Christina is. We'll give it a couple minutes and see if she can't log back on. Let me go over another question that we receive often. A couple of the requirements in order to maintain the Google ad grant once you get it. One of them is that you have to maintain a click-through rate of 5%, which from a regular for-profit organization is an incredibly high click-through rate. Most organizations see something closer to 2%. So how to get that click-through rate up so that you don't lose your Google grant eligibility? There are quite a few different ways to approach it. The most simple being look at the ads that you're already doing that have a 5% click-through rate and kind of take cues from what's already working to rework your other ads. If it's critical that you maintain your Google grant eligibility, you can turn off every single ad that isn't getting a 5% click-through rate. And like slowly add them back in as you mess with the details to make sure that you don't mess with that 5% click-through rate, because it is across the account as a whole. So if you get a couple ads going that have really high click-through rates, you can kind of use that as a cushion for other ads as you sort of test them out and figure out the direction that you want to go in. Depending on your brand and what it is that you want to achieve and the sort of keywords that you're looking to get your information in front of, there is a wide variety of things that you can do to achieve that 5% click-through rate. We've been able to do it with every single nonprofit that we've worked with thus far. We have yet to have an organization where it hasn't been possible. So if you have, like, let's say you have a particular ad that just really you can't get a good click-through rate for and it's not making any sense, let us know about the specifics and we'll be glad to help on a more specific level. Because honestly, other than that, like, very simple, here's a good ad, oh no, that one's not working, pause it until I can figure it out. There isn't any more blanket information that I can provide. It's very brand specific. When signing up, this is the question, sorry everyone. When signing up, should you use a station.org email or a Gmail address? That's a good question. That is more sort of an internal organizational thing than a Google thing. Google doesn't care. I have always found it easier to use a Gmail address because if you if you want to have a hope in the world of logging into a Google site and actually having it choose the right account in that top right-hand corner that you need to use in order to apply for these things, then it should be a Gmail account. Otherwise, it's always going to default to your Gmail account rather than your station account. But other than a mild annoyance and needing to kind of check that account thing in the top right-hand corner, it doesn't matter. So however you want to organize it and make sure that the emails arrive to the right place, it can be decided internally. Next question, if I can't get a Google grant because I'm a university licensee, how can I or should I invest in Google paid ads? Is that alone worthwhile? Yes, yes, it is. Well, doing Google paid ads gives you an opportunity to fill in that middle part of your funnel, and particularly for PBS stations, they have two such incredible advantages. One, so many of the organizations that I have worked with, the for-profits, have really struggled because they don't have good content. They don't have beautiful images. They don't have beautiful, engaging videos. So they're always needing to go externally from their organization in order to get those things made. And Google paid ads lives off of beautiful images and quality video. And the thing about PBS stations, you guys already have it. You already have the content. I mean, sometimes with a few tweaks here and there or to make it like shorter so that you don't lose people's engagement, but it's just such an incredible position to be in. And then so you have the content, and the other side is you have, I particularly like using them, the Google paid ads, excuse me, as a remarketing tool to bring people to passport videos. Because when people are wandering around the internet and focused on whatever it is that they're doing, if you grab their attention for something else, it better be something that they are either deeply invested in, so like, oh, a brand that I recognize, okay, I want to go there and engage with that, or something that has that instant gratification quality. So videos on Passport can be a great thing to send people to, especially if you combine that with the targeting being remarketing to people who have already been to your site, because then you sort of get a double whammy of people that already know who you are and what your brand is, and then people realistically that you want to engage with Passport, because then that's also a potential moneymaker.
Tracy, hi Tracy, this is Jody.
Hey, hi Jody.
Hi everybody, this is Jody Scheib with Carl Bloom Associates. Stepping in, you are right. Christina lost her internet thanks to Tropical Storm Isaias. I'm sure I'm not saying that right. I apologize. I've had a couple of questions come in to me that I thought I would shoot at you, Tracy. One is from a station who is a public radio station. You've talked quite a bit about the content and the video from public television stations being so appealing through the Google grant and on the Google display ads. Do you see an appropriate use for public radio only stations? And do you think they should invest heavier in the year before perhaps the election, when the news coverage is so important, than later in the year? How should they spend their budget this year?
Well, first of all, I love that your dog approves of that question. I too approve of that question. It's a very good question.
Thank you.
One of the subjects that we are getting the most hits for on the Google grants that are already managed are news related queries. It's off the charts. People are searching for local news, national news, election news. So being able to throw $10,000 a month at making sure that your news stories are the top result every day for people who are just searching for local news or national news or whatever it is, yes, it's absolutely worth it. Absolutely. And then obviously, without my favorite remarketing tool for Passport, obviously you wouldn't do it for Passport, but for remarketing for the news station, you could also do it for any features that you might have. Like you have an in-depth opinion piece or insights that's maybe it's particularly local, or maybe it's not quite so recent and topical, but it's deeper. You can use Google's remarketing paid ads in order to get people who have already engaged with your content in order to come back and read or listen to more. It's also great for when you're doing fundraising campaigns, because you can again do that remarketing to remind people that already know who you are and have already read your stories that it's time to donate.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. So do you think that either joint licensees or NPR only stations should front heavy their digital budgets into the year?
So front heavying digital budget isn't possible for the Google ad grant. It's $333 a day. Burn it or lose it, spend it or it's gone. So from that regard, it's not really possible. But for the paid ads, yes, absolutely. Because, I mean, from what I have seen, the majority of fundraising for nonprofits still occurs during the back half of the year, a lot during Giving Tuesday, and then donating for tax reasons at the end of the year or around Christmas. So front loading your Google paid ads in order to get as many people engaged with quality, balanced news about the election as possible. When it comes time after the election to donate, the normal donating time, people are going to remember that you took care of them, and they're going to be much more likely to donate at that point. And then you can sprinkle you can do some like content development advertisements before the election, and then some "Remember us, we took care of you" ads around the end of the year.
Okay, great. We have a few more questions, and I'm jumping back and forth. Is there a ratio of grant to paid that is recommended? If not a ratio, do you have a recommendation of dollar amount of the grant dollars, which I think you've already talked about, they're sort of the maximum, but a recommendation for the dollar amount of paid ads that are spent?
As a ratio, no, because like we've seen really relatively small stations utilize the full $10,000, and larger stations as well. So the paid aspect of Google Ads has more to do with the type of advertising that you want to do, and the number of people that you want to reach. So for example, if you wanted to do advertising reaching every person that's come to your website in the last 6 months, the dollar amount that you'd want to spend would be contingent on how many people had visited your site in the last 6 months. So more to do with traffic and less to do with a ratio. I hope that helps.
Okay. Another question, is it best to have only a couple of campaigns going at a time to keep the click-through rate up?
I'm going to assume that this is about the Google grant in particular, to keep it above that 5% click-through rate. Actually, I found it better to have lots of campaigns going at once. Have a couple campaigns that are just your standard bread and butter, the ones that you've got great click-through rates for. Because remember that the 5% click-through rate minimum is not per ad or per campaign. It's over the entire account. So if you have some ads that are performing really well, let's say you get an 8%, 10%, 15% click-through rate on, it basically gives you a giant cushion for running other advertisements that might have even a 1% click-through rate. So the more that you have your bread and butter functioning, the more space you have to experiment with other potentially less click-through ratey campaigns.
So I'll ask the final question that has come in. There have been a few other questions, and I think we'll address those directly because they're pretty specific to stations' individual needs. But the final question is asking if there'll be more webinars that will include tips and tricks to setting up the Google grant and to help maximize impressions and clicks. And I will answer for Christina unless she can jump in. The answer is absolutely. We hope to have the webinar series be at least monthly, but based on the subjects that you're interested in. And we can certainly dive deeper into any of these sort of broader categories with the tips and tricks on how to set it up and then how to maximize it. And of course, if you have any additional questions, Tracy and Christina and I are all here, and the entire team at CodeLoop, to help you get your grant set up, to help you work through the paid ads, and to launch your program for you. On the screen right now is Christina's email address. So please feel free to reach out. If we did not get to your question, we'll reach out to you specifically, but of course, email any questions that you may have, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. On that note, I want to thank Tracy for joining us and for all of her partnership in these last year or so now, I think, since the program's been up and running for several stations. And I want to thank all of you for attending, and please send any follow-up questions you have to Christina. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon at our next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.